It's just super unfortunate how STR Trunks and Tech Trunks are just completely unusable only because they are being designed with their EZAs in mind. Whereas in reality, their TURs should be made extremely good, and then they get EZAs in the future like every other character, because guess what? If they're going to give an EZA to a character in a year, they're going to make this character good right now, so that way they can actually be, somewhat viable in the current, state of the game. But if they're made with their EZAs in mind, then they're going to purposely hold back. And that's exactly what we're seeing with these characters right here. They're just not good. So, I go on rambling about this in this video I dropped right here. Let me know what you think about that video. If you watched it, if you haven't, then feel free to after this one. But in this video specifically, I would love to showcase or give you or show you two EZA concepts I made, one for this Trunks and one for this Trunks. And I'm going to say this right now, the EZA concepts I made should be their base kits when they actually, became a TUR, but that's neither here or there. I would love for you to let me know what you think about my EZA concepts. Are they too OP? Are they too good? Are they too weak? What would you do differently? Or just how would you design them in general? Again, I'd love that feedback from you. Starting off with STR Trunks. I will say though, if you're new to the channel, you have two options, okay? You can either subscribe to, making yourself a little better today by dropping down and give me 3 push-ups, or you can subscribe to the channel and get your daily dose of Dokkan content. Either one is good for you, so pick which one, all right? You gotta start making choices that are good for you, okay? All right, cool. Let's hop into this video. Starting off again with STR Trunks. Again, just completely mid, 100% of stats start of turn, which honestly looks decent, but remember, these characters have free-to-play stats. And I want everyone to understand that even just because a free-to-play character has 300% to attack and defense, let's say that were to be the case, their stats is what's going to determine how good that character really is. 300% to defense with 5k defense is a completely mid character. Just hear me out, okay? So numbers are only as good as their, stat values. Please keep that in mind, all right? Anyways, 100% to stats, 50% when key is 9 or more, 50% and all allies defense plus 20% for 7 turns from the start of turn, and then defense plus 100% starting from the 8th turn. So this character is a support, or I guess more support focused for 7 turns, and then becomes selfish after turn 7. That's the design philosophy I chose to use when giving this character an EZA. Let me know what you think. Here it is. So I didn't really touch the leader skill. I don't really care. It's going to be 77%. We already know that. I would love for this character to be at, 100%, 120%, right? I think that would benefit the free-to-play community a lot, but, I'm not the one designing the game here, so I guess it is what it is. Anyways, I gave him raising attack and defense, or raises attack and defense for 3 turns and immense damage. That is a change from just only raising attack and supreme damage, so he's just hitting harder. He's a free-to-play character, it doesn't really matter, but, he's still doing better damage. And then he gets 3 key and 150% to stats. He gets an extra 30% to stats when performing a super attack, plus an additional attack and defense plus 50% when key is 9 or more. I'll tell you this right now, I think this should just be built in to the character at the start of turn. And when you're running this guy on a normal leader skill, he's going to have 3 key here plus 3 key from both leaders. He's going to be at 9 key immediately. So you're activating this literally immediately, right? Which should be the point at the end of the day. Plus an additional attack and defense plus 50%. Reduces damage received by 50%. And all allies 3 key and 50% to defense for 7 turns from the start of turn. So he is a really solid support for 7 turns, while also reducing his own, reducing damage received and getting the same buff he was getting, before anyways, right? And then after 7 turns elapse, you're at 150%, so it's, instead of 100, it's 150% defense. Reduces damage received by 20%, and all allies 2 key and 20% defense starting from the 8th turn. So I still kept the same philosophy in becoming more selfish on turn 8, but I still allowed him to reduce damage as well as still support. Not a great support compared to before, but it's still a support nonetheless, giving him at least some form of utility. This is a character that you're running in slot 3 anyways, right? I mean, it depends on the boss. I feel like, if you are in an event where he is going to super attack first and then the enemy is going to attack, he could actually look pretty decent because we're at 150% defense, 30% on super, An extra 20, no, yes, 30% on super here. And then we're at what? 50% of the stats here for free. 50% of the stats here for the first 7 turns. And then 50% damage reduction. And then also keep in mind the easy 8 stats, right? So I feel like maxed out, this character could be looking at, you know, high 350s. Sorry, just high 300s. Maybe mid 400k to defense. Maybe, right? I would say anywhere from like 250k to like 430k defense, with 50% damage reduction. I think is really solid for a free-to-play character. Like you are getting use out of that, and on top of that, he is a support. Hey, I forgot to factor that in too. Yeah, he's also giving himself this 50% defense as well. So again, this is, I think, a very solid easy 8 character, and I'll say this one more time: this should be his kit without getting an easy 8. And if you think this is too good, then I will tell you that is part of the problem. They have conditioned you to feel like you don't deserve good free characters, and that is just a bad, terrible philosophy. I'm here to tell you that you deserve characters this good. And if you think this character is mid, well, let's relax a little bit, okay? Because, you know, this is not a summonable character. This is a free character. Dokkan is not going to give, you know, a free character absolute just insane, you know, stuff, unless it's like restrictive, of course. But again, I think this character deserves at least this treatment. You could be a little bit better. It could be a little worse. I think I'd still be fine with that. But me personally, this is what I would be happy with once this character got an easy A. Anyways, moving on to this Int Trunks. So we're talking about 2 key, 80% of stats, build above 20% up to 80% for both stats. Medium chance of critting. This is a terrible mechanic. And I'll say this: yes, there is a red zone that deals with Future Saga and time travelers, but guess what? Bringing this character into red zone just for a medium chance to crit is terrible. On top of that, we're talking about, you know, 2 categories where, again, I don't know the stats, but maybe I would say less than like 20% of bosses in the game are future or time traveler category enemies, right? I'd say maybe 30% or less. So you're definitely, it's less than 50%, which means for a majority of the game, you're not seeing this, right? So it just sucks, right? Plus an additional 40% to stats on super when there is a future saga category ally attacking in the same turn. Then he has this whole, you know, 10% Dokkan field future saga super class enemies and allies debuff and buff there. And then Dokkan domain stuff, you know, whatever the case is. This is what I gave him for his EZA. Same super attack effect. Again, I didn't change the leader skill, but 70%, 77% is going to be most likely what it is. He gets 2 key and 120%, so an increase of 40% here. And then a build above 30% up to 120. So instead of 20 up to 80, it's 30 up to 120. So total, we're at 2 key and 240% to stats. Guards all attacks and performs a critical hit when there's a future saga or time travelers category enemy. Now, the reason why I went with just, you know, guard and guaranteed crit is because of the restriction of needing these 2 enemies. Remember, this is a 2023 free-to-play unit in one of the biggest celebrations of the year. 2 years ago, we got this guy who just crits for no reason. He just crits for fun. 2 years ago. So if we can get a character 2 years ago who crits for no reason, no restriction, I think it's definitely plausible to get at least 2 years later a free character who can crit based off of a very restrictive stipulation. That's just my opinion. Maybe you disagree. That's just, you know, my take on it. And guarding is good because now when you're talking about guarding and guaranteed crits, we're now talking about potentially bringing this character into red zone. Potentially. Again, 240% of stats is not great for a free-to-play character in red zone, which I think we can all agree with. But guarding is now, we're in that acceptable territory, right? He still needs more, though, which there's more to do here. There's more to talk about here, but still, you get the point. Anyways. Plus an additional attack and defense plus 60% when performing a super attack, and performs an additional super attack if there's 2 future saga category allies attacking in the same turn. So I changed this from just having 1 on the same turn to now needing 2 to get both the 60% and the guaranteed additional super. He is meant to be run on future anyways. I also changed this. So before it was, let's see here, starting from the 5th turn, I changed that to the 4th turn. And then I also increased this from 10% up to attack and defense plus 30%. So when his Dokkan field or when his domain is active, he's technically literally a support, right, for 30% to stats. As long as you're not facing a Future Saga category enemy or super class category enemy, you're going to be okay, right? Yeah, so this character here, I feel like if you're running a full Future Saga team, we can talk about Red Zone here because we're at 240% of stats. A guaranteed additional means that you're building this up a lot faster. So in one turn with no hidden potential buffs, we're talking about 60% of stats. It only takes 2 turns, right, to get this fully active. But 2 key, 240% of stats, guaranteed this, right? Attack and even 60% after super attacking. We're definitely talking about 2 independent buffs of this every single turn, plus guarding, plus guaranteed crits, and those guaranteed crits are going to be backed by an additional super. So 2 guaranteed crits, guarding, 2 key, 240% of stats with 60% on super. I feel like, and a Dokkan domain that's going to be supporting, that's easier to activate. I think this is definitely a good EZA for this character, where he can be useful in Red Zone. He has some utility in Red Zone, or specifically against a future or a time traveler category enemies. He may not be useful in every part of the game, but that's okay. He's a free character. At least give him utility in some place. And I think that Future Saga Red Zone, again, some bosses will still one-shot him, but I still feel like he has, this is an option, an actual option now for units in Dokkan, and thankfully he has to perform attacks, not receive attacks, right? So it's you can kind of build this up kind of like risk-free, like you can put him in slot 2 or slot 3 and have him attack first without actually having him to, I think it's a better design for free characters to, need to perform attacks instead of receive attacks. And because he's performing attacks, I decided to give him the additional super attack mechanic here. So let me know what you think. If this is what the EZAs for these characters look like, I think I'll be definitely more than happy. But we both know it's not going to be the case. They're not going to be, I think, this good. I'm not saying this is like the best, thing ever, but this is definitely, like, I think they're not going to look this good, which is definitely just a problem already. But we'll see. Dokkan can definitely surprise us, right? They've done crazier things. So hopefully you enjoyed. I'll see you in the next one. Take care and peace.